Listen to me carefully, because what I'm about to tell you can change everything. Right now, today, this moment, most people spend their lives chasing motivation, waiting for the perfect day, the perfect opportunity, the perfect feeling. But the truth is, massive change doesn't come from luck. It doesn't come from willpower. It comes from one simple, powerful habit you can do every single day. Just one, that's it. One habit done consistently can shift your identity, your energy, your decisions, and your entire life. And once you start, nothing, not fear, not doubt, not failure can stop you. The truth is, instant change doesn't start with the habit itself. It starts with the moment you decide who you are going to be from this day forward. Every transformation in life begins with identity. Most people think they need more motivation, more time, a better routine, a perfect morning system, or some magical new strategy. But what they actually need, what you need, is a decision about who you are becoming. Because the second you shift your identity, the way you act, the way you show up, the way you respond to life, everything changes instantly. Think about it. The reason people fail to build new habits isn't because the habit is too hard. It's because their old identity keeps pulling them back into the same patterns. They still see themselves as someone who struggles, someone who procrastinates, someone who tries. Trying is the language of hesitation. Trying is the identity of someone preparing to fail. But the moment you decide this is who I am now, hesitation dies. Your identity becomes the engine. And once identity shifts, effort becomes automatic. Every extraordinary person you admire didn't become consistent first. They became someone who saw themselves differently. They weren't waiting for a lightning bolt of willpower. They weren't hoping to suddenly wake up disciplined. They chose their identity deliberately. And identity is powerful because the strongest force in the human personality is the need to remain consistent with how we define ourselves. If you tell yourself you're not a morning person, you'll hit snooze no matter how many alarms you set. If you say you're someone who can't focus, you'll seek distractions even when you're trying to lock in. If you see yourself as someone who always quits, your brain will guide you toward quitting without you even realizing it. But if you say, I'm someone who shows up, you'll show up even on the days when it's uncomfortable. If you say, I'm someone who takes control of my life, you'll take control even when it's easier to give it away. That's the power of identity. Instant life change happens the moment you stop negotiating with the old version of you. Because that old version keeps offering you the same excuses, the same stories, the same limitations, but you're not that person anymore. You don't get transformation by trying to drag your old self into a new life. You get transformation by letting that old self go entirely. When you shift identity, the habit becomes a natural extension of who you are. It's not a chore anymore. It's not something you try. It becomes automatic because it aligns with your sense of self. You've done this before in your life without even realizing. Think back to a moment when you decided something was no longer acceptable. There was a day when you said, I'm done with this. You stopped tolerating that standard, that behavior, that situation. And what happened? You changed instantly. You didn't need training or motivation. You didn't need a 30-day plan. You just decided, and that decision rewired you in a second. That's identity. That's what everyday habits are built upon. Not motivation, not hype, identity. You can choose that right now. You don't need permission. You don't need the perfect environment. You don't need more knowledge. You just need a decision about who you're going to be every single day. And once you choose that identity, the habit becomes the proof of who you are. The habit becomes the anchor that reinforces the identity. That's how real change works. The habit shapes the identity, and the identity fuels the habit. It's a loop of empowerment. And the beautiful thing is, you don't need to wait for the perfect version of yourself to show up. You simply need to show up as the version you choose to become. The future version of you, the one who is disciplined, successful, focused, energized, and unstoppable, is not far away. It's not 10 years or even 1 year down the road. It's just one decision away, right here, right now, this moment, this breath. Every time you take an action that aligns with your chosen identity, your brain says, this is who we are now. Do you realize how fast change can happen? When that becomes your belief, it becomes effortless. It becomes your new normal. And the habit, the one everyday habit that builds momentum, becomes your evidence. It becomes the thing you do, not because you should, but because it's simply what someone like you does. Someone committed, someone rising higher, someone transforming one day at a time. So today, I'm asking you to step into that identity. Don't ask, how do I build this habit? Ask, who must I become for this habit to be natural? Because the moment you reclaim your identity, the moment you decide that you are the kind of person who shows up every single day, that single decision becomes the foundation for everything else in your life. Once identity shifts, life shifts. That's how instant change begins. That's how transformation becomes real. And that's the moment your new life starts. And it starts right now. Most people think they need massive action to create massive change. They think they need to overhaul their entire life, build a perfect morning routine, rewrite their habits from scratch, or redesign everything at once. That's why they get overwhelmed. That's why they quit, because they believe transformation comes from doing something big, something dramatic, something life-shattering all at once. But real instant change, lasting change, comes from something far simpler, a small, non-negotiable daily standard that you commit to with absolute certainty. There is unbelievable power in something tiny that you do every single day. 5 minutes of the right habit can shift the entire trajectory of your life. 5 minutes of intentional focus can change your emotional state, your confidence, your momentum. 5 minutes can be the difference between a day that pulls you forward and a day that drags you down. But most people underestimate the power of small because they're addicted to the fantasy of big. They'd rather plan for an hour a day than commit to 5 minutes. They'd rather dream about a massive change than anchor a small one. But the truth is, the small habit is the one that actually transforms you because you can't argue with it. You can't negotiate with it. You can't make excuses around it. You can't tell yourself you don't have time. 5 minutes is always available. 5 minutes doesn't demand motivation. It demands a decision. And those 5 minutes become a daily promise you keep to yourself. And when you start keeping promises to yourself, your entire life starts to shift. A lot of people think they fail because they lack discipline, but it's not discipline that breaks them. It's inconsistency. They go all in for a day, maybe a week, and then fall off because they built a standard too heavy to carry. But imagine this, instead of trying to carry a mountain, you carry a pebble every single day, no matter what. The pebble doesn't intimidate you. The pebble doesn't exhaust you. And because you carry it every day, the weight of consistency builds strength in you. It builds trust in you. It builds identity in you. That's why the 5-minute standard matters. It's not about the length of the habit. It's about the proof of commitment. It's about proving to yourself day after day that you are someone who follows through. And once you establish that identity, once you build proof in small doses, your mind naturally expands the behavior because when you feel momentum, you crave more. When you feel progress, you want to stack it. When you see yourself winning, you want bigger wins. You don't transform your life by trying to change everything. You transform your life by changing one thing every day. And you make that one thing non-negotiable. Think about that standard, like oxygen, something you don't skip, something you don't question. It becomes part of who you are. You don't need motivation to breathe. You don't need inspiration to breathe. You breathe because it's part of living. Your daily standard must become the same, a ritual that grounds you, anchors you, and lifts you into the right emotional state. Because here's the secret, emotion drives action. If your emotional state is low, you'll make low decisions. You'll hesitate more, avoid more, delay more. But a small, powerful habit done early in your day shifts your emotional state instant. Apply. It primes you. It activates a part of you that's focused, capable, grounded, and ready. And that emotional shift affects your choices all day long. So while the habit itself may take only 5 minutes, the effect lasts hours. The ripple touches everything. And the best part, small daily standards remove resistance. There's no dread. There's no internal battle. You don't look at the habit and think, I don't know if I can do this today. You look at it and say, this is easy. Let's go. And on the days when you don't feel like doing anything, when your energy is low, when your mind is heavy, when the world feels like too much, that small standard still feels possible. And when you push yourself to show up on those days, those moments become the bricks that build an unbreakable version of you. Because consistency is not built on perfect days. It's built on days where you don't feel like it, but you still give yourself 5 minutes. Those 5 minutes become a message to your brain. Even at my weakest, I show up. And that message strengthens you in ways you can't even see it. That message builds confidence you carry into every other area of your life. That message becomes the foundation of every bigger habit you want to create in the future. You don't rise to the level of your potential. You rise to the level of your standards. And a small, daily, non-negotiable standard is powerful because it creates momentum. Momentum is not created by giant leaps. It's created by small steps taken without fail. Once you feel momentum, you begin to trust yourself. And once you trust yourself, you become unstoppable. Every day, you only need one win to start building that momentum. One win that says, I showed up. One win that sets the tone. One win that reminds your mind who's in control. And the beauty is that win is only 5 minutes away. It's always available. No excuse, no waiting, no complexity. Just one small, powerful standard that shifts everything. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have the best plan. You don't need to know every step of the journey. You just need to give yourself one small guaranteed win every single day. And if you do that, if you commit to that tiny habit without fail, you will experience a level of momentum, confidence, and clarity that will start to change your entire life much faster than you ever expected. Because when you master the small, you unlock the big. When you commit to consistency, you unlock potential. And when you choose a daily standard you don't negotiate with, you begin to rise into the person you were always meant to be. The difference between the life you have and the life you want is hidden in that one simple everyday habit. And it starts with 5 minutes every day, no matter what. Most people wake up and immediately fall into reaction. They grab their phone, check notifications, scroll, compare, worry, rush. And before they've even taken their first deep breath, their emotional state has already been hijacked by the world. And then they wonder why the day feels chaotic, heavy, or empty. They think their day is determined by circumstances, but the truth is their day is determined by their state. The way you feel in your body, the emotions you're flooded with, the energy you carry, that's the steering wheel for every decision you make. If your state is low, your decisions will be small. If your state is stressed, your choices will be reactive. But when your state is strong, energized, and centered, you make better choices, you follow through more naturally, and you show up as the version of yourself you're proud of. That's why this one habit matters so much, taking control of your emotional state every morning. Not by accident, not when you have time, not when you feel like it, but intentionally, deliberately, as a ritual that shapes the entire trajectory of your day. Because when you shift your state first, everything else becomes easier. Your mind opens, your confidence lights up, your energy rises, and suddenly the things that felt overwhelming start to feel manageable. The obstacles that seemed heavy begin to shrink. Your perspective widens. You become more resilient, more patient, more decisive. You become someone who leads the day instead of someone who is dragged by it. People underestimate how fast they can shift their emotional state. They think it takes hours, but it only takes seconds. One breath, one thought, one movement, one decision. But you have to own that choice deliberately. You've probably had moments where everything in your life felt difficult. And then one song came on, or one conversation happened, or one memory surfaced, and instantly your energy changed. You felt different. You acted different. You thought different. You didn't need a long explanation. You just needed a shift in state. And that shift changed everything. So imagine if instead of waiting for those moments by chance, you created them on purpose every single morning. Imagine waking up and designing the emotional fuel you're going to run on for the day. Imagine starting the morning not with stress, but with certainty, not with anxiety, but with strength, not with distraction, but with intention. You'd move through your day with more clarity, more passion, more compassion, more courage. You wouldn't just respond to life, you direct it. That's why controlling your state becomes the foundation for the habit that changes everything. Because you can have all the goals in the world, all the plans, all the strategies, but if your emotional state is off, your brain won't follow through. You'll talk yourself out of action. You'll shrink your ambi to match your fear. You'll collapse back into old patterns, not because you're weak, but because your state isn't aligned with your potential. When your state is low, your vision shrinks to the level of your fear. But when your state is strong, your vision expands to the level of your capability. Every day you need to prime your mind and your body to access the strongest version of yourself. Maybe it's breathing deeply and fully for a few minutes. Maybe it's movement. Maybe it's gratitude. Maybe it's setting a powerful intention. Maybe it's visualizing the life you're stepping into. Maybe it's reminding yourself of who you're choosing to be today. These aren't small things. They're powerful triggers that reposition your brain and activate your emotions. And when your emotions shift, your entire life shifts. Most people wait to feel good before they take action, but those who transform their lives take action to feel good. They decide, I'm going to put myself in the state that allows me to win today. And they don't wait for permission. They don't wait for ideal conditions. They don't wait for motivation. They create the feeling. They generate the energy. They design the state that aligns with their goals. Because your state is not random. It's something you can influence at any moment. You can change your breath, change your focus, change your movement, and instantly change how you feel. That is real power. And when you exercise that power every morning, you become unstoppable. Because the world can throw challenges at you, but it can't control your internal response. It can't break you unless you give it the permission to shape your state. And when you prime your state early in the day, that strength begins to compound. You make better decisions. You handle problems more effectively. You communicate more clearly. You feel more grounded. You build more momentum. And because of all that, the habit you're trying to build becomes 10 times easier to stick with. The small, non-negotiable daily standard becomes something you look forward to instead of something you resist, because your emotional state supports the habit rather than sabotages it. Think about how many times you've said you'll start a habit but didn't follow through. Not because you didn't care, not because you weren't capable, but because your emotional state wasn't aligned. You felt tired, stressed, discouraged, or overwhelmed, and the habit felt like just one more thing. But if you shift your state first, the habit becomes natural. It becomes something you want to do because it matches the emotional energy you've created for yourself. The habit reinforces the state, and the state reinforces the habit. That's why this one everyday practice has the power to trigger instant change. Because when you take control of your state, you take control of your choices. And when you take control of your choices, you take control of your identity. And when your identity changes, your entire life rearranges around that choice. This is where true transformation begins, not with the outside world, not with circumstances, not with motivation, but with the emotional state you choose to live in. When you master your state every morning, you become the kind of person who doesn't wait for life to shift. You shift yourself first. And when you do that consistently, every day starts to move in the direction of your highest potential. Your emotions are not just feelings, they are instructions to your brain. They tell your mind what's possible. They tell your body how to show up. They tell your habits how to unfold. And when you take charge of them first, you change the quality of your day before the day even begins. That's the real power of starting strong. That's the real magic behind this habit. Because the moment you master your state, you master your life. Most people fail to create lasting change, not because they lack desire, but because they treat the very habits that could transform their life as optional. They treat their growth like a suggestion instead of a standard. They tell themselves, I'll do it if I have time, if I feel inspired, if the day goes smoothly, if nothing gets in the way. And that mindset kills momentum before it has a chance to build. The truth is, the moment something becomes optional, life will always find a way to interrupt it. Distraction will sneak in, excuses will feel louder, urgency will take over, and suddenly the thing that was supposed to change your life gets pushed to tomorrow, and then tomorrow becomes next week, and then next week becomes someday, and someday never comes. Real transformation begins when you stop treating the habit like something you should do, and instead transform it into a ritual. Something sacred, something non-negotiable, something woven into the foundation of your identity. A ritual isn't dependent on motivation. A ritual isn't dependent on convenience. A ritual is a commitment you honor because it represents who you are and who you re-becoming. When you turn a habit into a ritual, you remove the debate, you remove the internal argument. There's no more negotiating with your older, weaker self. There's no more bargaining with your excuses. There's no maybe later. There's just action. There's just follow through. There's just you showing up every single day, not because the habit is easy, but because the ritual is part of who you are now. Think about this. There are things you do every day without questioning them. You don't wake up and debate whether you'll brush your teeth. You don't ask yourself if you're in the mood to shower. You don't negotiate with yourself about whether you'll eat. You do those things because they're rituals, basic parts of living that you've internalized so deeply they no longer require thought. Your transformation needs to reach that level. Your one daily habit, this anchor habit that shifts your identity, needs to be treated with the same inevitability. It becomes part of the structure of your day. It becomes your personal power switch. And something amazing happens when you elevate a habit to the level of a ritual. You begin to show up differently. You create consistency effortlessly. You build momentum without draining willpower. You step into each day with a sense of intention and control that most people never experience. The ritual becomes a doorway into a higher version of yourself. But here's what's important. Rituals are not forced. They're chosen. They carry meaning. They carry emotional weight. When you turn your habit into a ritual, you're not just doing something, you're symbolizing something. You're telling your mind and your body, this is the moment I align myself with the life I'm building. It becomes a personal ceremony of transformation every day. And that is powerful. Most people fail because they rely on motivation, and motivation is unreliable. Some days you'll feel unstoppable, and some days you'll feel like you're dragging yourself through mud. That's normal. But rituals don't depend on feeling. Rituals depend on identity. When you ritualize your habit, you don't need to feel good to show up. You show up because that's what someone who is committed to their future does. And here's the truth. The act of showing up, especially on the days when you don't feel like it, is the very thing that builds self-respect. Self-respect doesn't come from achieving goals. It comes from keeping the small promises you make to yourself every day. And nothing builds that self-respect faster than honoring a ritual you've committed to. Every time you show up, you reinforce the message, I can trust myself. And when that trust grows, everything in your life rises with it. Rituals also create a rhythm, a tempo that your mind and body begin to follow. When you repeat something consistently at the same time with the same intention, your brain prepares for it. It anticipates it. It begins to support it. And that internal alignment removes resistance. Suddenly, the habit isn't something you're forcing onto your life. It becomes something your life naturally supports. Think for a moment about athletes, performers, or extraordinary achievers. They don't rely on feeling good. They rely on rituals. They have pregame rituals, morning rituals, grounding rituals. These aren't superstitions. They are anchors. They put their mind and body into a peak state. They don't walk into performance by accident. They enter it deliberately, and you deserve the same level of intention in your everyday life. If you want to change your life instantly, if you want transformation that lasts, turn your daily habit into a ritual that you honor like something sacred. Make it something that represents the best version of you. Approach it with purpose. Approach it with energy. Approach it with meaning. Let it be your daily reminder that you are in control, not your circumstances, not your past, not your excuses. And when you show up every day for this ritual, no matter how small it is, you're training your brain to expect greatness from you. You're conditioning your mind to rise. You're teaching yourself that you are capable of consistency, capable of discipline, capable of living at a higher standard. Over time, that ritual becomes the doorway into a new identity. And once identity shifts, everything else in your life begins to align with it. Suddenly your goals feel closer. Your confidence grows. Your habits begin to stack. Your energy rises. You begin to experience momentum that feels effortless. And all of it starts because you chose to turn something small into something sacred. This is the power of a ritual. It's the moment you stop hoping for change and start embodying it. It's the moment you take your future out of the realm of someday and place it in your hands today. And it's the moment you step into the life you're meant to live with clarity, intention, and power. The ritual is the bridge between the person you were and the person you are becoming. And the moment you honor it, everything begins to change. Momentum is one of the most underestimated forces in life. People talk about discipline, they talk about motivation, they talk about hard work, but none of those things are sustainable without momentum. Momentum is the invisible power that pushes you forward when you don't even realize it. It creates a sense of ease, a sense of flow, a sense of I can do this that makes everything else in your day feel lighter. And the beautiful thing about momentum is that it doesn't require a massive achievement to start. It only needs one win, one small victory, one moment of follow through that tells your brain we're moving, we're capable, we're progressing. And that one win repeated every day becomes the spark that ignites everything else in your life. Most people start their day at zero. And when you start at zero, everything feels heavy. Decisions feel harder. Tasks feel bigger. Problems feel more overwhelming. It's like trying to push a car from a dead stop. It takes so much more effort just to get it moving. But when you begin your day with a small win, something shifts immediately. You're no longer starting from zero. You're starting with momentum already on your side, and suddenly pushing forward becomes 10 times easier. This is why your morning habit, your one non-negotiable daily standard, is so important. It's not about the 5 minutes. It's not about the mechanics. It's about the psychological message it sends. When you start your day with a win, you're telling yourself, I'm in motion, I'm in control, I'm following through. And your brain responds to that message by raising your confidence, boosting your energy, and preparing you to make stronger decisions. Because once you start winning, you start wanting more wins. Think about how many times you've had a day where one good choice led to another good choice. You drink water instead of grabbing something sugary, and suddenly you feel more energized. You handle one difficult task early, and suddenly you feel more productive. You take 5 minutes to breathe, stretch, or get centered, and suddenly the entire day feels more grounded. That's not coincidence. That's momentum. Once you create it, your brain works with you instead of against you. It starts scanning for more opportunities to keep the streak alive. It starts rewarding you emotionally for continuing the progress. But understand this too, momentum doesn't happen by accident. It has to be created deliberately. And the fastest way to create it is to stack a small win early in the day. Not a complicated win, not a dramatic win, something simple, doable, and unavoidable. Because the point isn't to impress anyone. The point is to prime your psychology. When your brain experiences success early, even a tiny one, it shifts the tone for everything that follows. You begin to feel like the kind of person who follows through, and that identity rises inside you throughout the day. Momentum is also the antidote to procrastination. When you procrastinate, It's not because you're lazy. It's because you're stuck at zero. The task feels too big relative to where your energy is. But when you get momentum going, tasks feel smaller. You step into them with more courage. You take action without overthinking. You feel pulled forward rather than pushed. That's the power of stacking early wins. They create an internal pull toward action instead of an internal battle. And here's something people rarely talk about. Momentum doesn't just affect what you do, it affects how you feel about yourself. Every win builds self-trust. Every win builds certainty. Every win strengthens that inner belief that says, I can handle this. I can grow. I can rise. And once you feel that belief growing inside you, you begin to take bigger risks, bigger steps, bigger leaps. Not because you suddenly gained more ability, but because momentum gave you more confidence to use the ability you already had. But the opposite is also true. When you start your day with avoidance, when you hit snooze, delay the habit, skip the ritual, or give in to distraction, you don't just lose time, you lose momentum. And when you lose momentum, everything becomes harder. You start slipping into self-doubt. You start shrinking your vision. You start believing the lie that you're behind, all because you let the morning unfold without a win. This is why the small daily habit is so important. It becomes the anchor that ensures you start every day with movement. And that movement becomes momentum, and momentum becomes power. Over time, the compounding effect is unbelievable. You start noticing that your decisions get stronger. Your mood becomes more stable. Your energy lasts longer. Your follow-through improves automatically. You begin attracting opportunities because you're walking through life with a different level of certainty and clarity. And here's the part most people overlook. Consistency creates more momentum than intensity. You don't need a 2-hour morning routine. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need to overhaul your entire life. You just need one small win, one, every single day. And if you do that long enough, your brain will begin to expect success from you. Instead of trying to convince yourself to show up, you'll feel pulled to show up because momentum will be carrying you instead of resistance holding you back. You also begin to develop what I call emotional momentum. This is when your energy rises each day because your wins are stacking. You stop talking yourself out of things. You stop doubting yourself. You stop hesitating. No, because the world changed, but because your internal engine is running. You become someone who moves, someone who acts, someone who follows through. And the beautiful thing is this. The size of the win doesn't matter. What matters is that you create it. A tiny win repeated daily will outperform a massive win done occasionally every single time. Because momentum compounds. What starts as 5 minutes becomes 10. What starts as a small shift becomes a lifestyle. What starts as a single action becomes identity. Every great transformation begins with momentum. And every momentum begins with one win. So give yourself that win. Own it. Create it intentionally. Let it set the tone for your day, your habits, your confidence, your mindset, and ultimately your life. Because once momentum starts moving in your favor, there's nothing more powerful. And once you feel it, you'll never want to start a day without it again. Momentum is the spark that turns your habits into a force. And one early win is all it takes to light the fire. You can have the strongest willpower in the world, the clearest intention, the deepest desire to change. But if your environment is working against you, it will eventually defeat you. Not because you're weak, not because you're lazy, but because environment shapes behavior more powerfully than motivation ever will. The world around you influences your choices faster than your conscious mind can keep up with. And if you want to create instant change, if you want to build a habit that becomes effortless, you have to design your environment to support the version of yourself you're becoming, not the version you're trying to leave behind. Most people don't realize their environment is silently pulling them back into old patterns. The clutter on the table steals clarity. The notifications on the phone steal focus. The people around them steal energy. The N always steals peace. The temptations steal discipline. Their environment becomes a trap, subtle, invisible, but incredibly powerful. And then they blame themselves for breaking habits when the real problem wasn't their strength, it was their surroundings. You rise or fall to the level of the environment you place yourself in. When your environment is aligned with your goals, the habit becomes easy. When your environment contradicts your goals, the habit becomes a battle. And no one wins a battle every day, not for long. The key is to remove the battle altogether by engineering your environment to push you towards success automatically. Think about how simple this can be. If your habit is a 5-minute ritual in the morning, set up the space the night before. Make it obvious, make it inviting, make it impossible to ignore. Put your tools where you can see them. Remove anything that creates friction. When something is out of sight, it's out of mind. But when it's in front of you, you're far more likely to follow through. Your environment should whisper to you, this is who you are. It should nudge you in the right direction, even on the days when your energy is low. It should support your identity, not sabotage it. Another part of environment is the people around you. Energy is contagious. Mindset is contagious. Discipline is contagious. And so is mediocrity. If you surround yourself with people who settle, who complain, who procrastinate, who avoid growth, it becomes harder for you to rise, not because you don't want to rise, but because their energy pulls you back into comfort. You need people around you who stretch you, people who challenge you, people who speak the same language of growth, people who support your standards instead of asking you to lower them. You don't need approval, you need alignment. And alignment comes from placing yourself in environments that elevate your thinking. Your digital environment matters too. What you consume shapes your emotional state. What you see repeatedly becomes your internal dialogue. If you wake up and scroll through negativity, drama, fear-based content, or comparison, you've already weakened your emotional state before the day even begins. But if you consume something empowering, something that elevates you, something that aligns with your identity, your mind shifts instantly. Environment also includes the habits around your habit. If your environment is chaotic, your habit becomes harder. If your environment is orderly, the habit becomes smoother. If your environment drains you, it becomes difficult to show up consistently. But when your environment energizes you, you naturally want to move forward. People underestimate how simple environment shifts can create massive changes. Move your phone to another room. Put your workout clothes where you can see them. Clear your workspace. Place a reminder where you can't avoid it. Reduce the friction around the habit. Increase the friction around the things that sabotage you. Make the path to progress easy and make the path to distraction costly. Transformation is not about forcing yourself to be strong every moment. It's about being smart about the world you place yourself in. When your environment aligns with your intentions, you don't need to try harder. You automatically do better. You start making choices that match your goals. You start feeling more in control. You start experiencing progress without the internal struggle. And the best part is, environment is something you can change instantly, right now, today, without waiting, without needing permission. You can adjust one thing in your environment and feel the shift immediately. And once your environment shifts, your emotions shift. When your emotions shift, your decisions shift. When your decisions shift, your identity shifts. And identity is what transforms your life. Design your environment for the person you want to become, not the person you used to be. Because when your environment supports you, the habit becomes easier, the momentum grows stronger, and the transformation becomes inevitable. You don't need more willpower. You need a world that makes your success unavoidable.